Visit thriverealestateeducation.com for free video CE. You really can't go wrong. 24/7, 365. Do your CE right online.
Hello, everyone. Jessica Peterson here, real estate agent, founder of Simply Wow Agency. Thrive Real Estate Education has me come in to interview and talk with the best people. And obviously, Tim and Julie Harris are, you have like your list of top people. You're on the very, very top. So thank you, Tim.
Not the top, the top.
Top,
We're like,
top,
not
top.
penthouse, we're level down or something. That's very, I don't know.
We're penthouse styling today. I actually have a penthouse listed, so we are penthouse styling today. You are the penthouse of real estate, Tim. Harris Rules. Read your book.
Good.
Loved it. I gave you guys a testimonial out there. So I know all of our thrivers out there. They want to thrive in real estate. Everybody wants to thrive in real estate, right? I mean, nobody says, "Oh, I completely just want to tank in the business." So I know you've got so much value. Let's give away as much as we can. Definitely buy the book, which I see up there on the wall. I have my thank you cards I've received recently. You've got Harris Rules, your book right there. Harris Rules, everyone. Fantastic book. Check it out. Fantastic coaching podcast, every single day podcast. That's just mind blowing and amazing to me.
Yeah. The funny thing about the podcast is that we switched providers. Julie's walking into the studio. That's all right. It's all right, Julie. It's not rude.
Julie.
It's not live cast. She's not right now. We're not casting live in front of 40,000 people. So you're perfectly fine walking in and interrupting.
Just a couple thousand.
The podcast. You want to come in and say hello? Just say hi.
Hi.
Hey. What does it say? We'll run for.
Oh, Donato's. It's our favorite pizza in Columbus. It just reminds me I have to run if I want to eat any of it.
COVID's made us a little bit nutty, if you can't tell. What were we talking about? Oh, so the podcast. Yeah, the podcast. We started doing podcasting as a fluke, and I don't even remember how many years ago. It was more than 5. And according to Podbean, we actually have over 3,000 shows that we've done. And I didn't know that until last Sunday, because we switched from one podcasting provider to the other, and the new podcasting provider gives a number to all your shows. It was like 3,079. I was thinking to myself, there's no way we've done, but we had. I mean, it's incredible. So the podcast is the #1 listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in at least the United States. But I was going through the statistics, and we've got listeners in, I think, like 18 different countries now, all primarily English-speaking countries, but Australia, New Zealand, some in Germany, a lot in Canada, but a majority of them, like 93%, are in the United States. But the podcast is something that, that's the main way people discover us nowadays. And it's got, on a normal day, we'll have tens of thousands of downloads and listens. I mean, there's a difference, right? Downloads are people that have it on their phone, or downloads, and listens will be people that listen to it off, maybe we have it on Instagram, or we have it on Facebook, we have it on our main website. But yeah, I mean, so the podcast is something that people seem to really love and gravitate towards. And when we do our podcast, we leave everything on the table. We're trying to give as much value as we can, because ultimately, our job, our mission is to be of service to real estate agents. Our job, the highest and truest purpose of all of us on this planet, and I can tell Jessica you live by this, is to be of service to other people. And if you earn the right to be of service to enough people, then there's really nothing you can't achieve in your own life.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I'm grateful Kevin Cottrell and connected us, right? Otherwise, I didn't know who you were. You probably didn't know who I was. And I'm really inspired. I'm looking at Podbean. I'm launching a Create a Wow Life channel. It's all how to wow people, your business, and you. So you wowed me. I'm excited. Like I said, I got all sorts of notes from your book. We're going to cover as much as we can in a short amount of time, provide all this value. You ready to go?
Yes, ma'am.
So I really like how you said, before you go on a trip, you get it all together. I was laughing, back in the good old days, with the whole COVID thing right now, we, go on the trips. I used to sit there and think, wow, I got so much put together. And I think of Thrive Real Estate Education. It's kind of like Thriver's Island. It's a place that you go to, reconnect, to learn, and to thrive. And I like how you said that, and set your life into motion like that. Just like you are going to go ahead on this trip and get as much done and push it. Do you have anything to add to that, Tim?
Other than the fact that we're just literally scheduling a trip to North Carolina to see the leaves change right before the start of this interview. So your question is perfectly timed. No, I mean, but that's an interesting little philosophy of life, though. It's basically the core of the thought is procrastination, right? And if you have to condense, if you're leaving to go to, say, North Carolina to look at the leaves at the end of October, you're going to have probably get a hell of a lot more done leading up to that than you otherwise would have. Or even better yet, don't give the essence of it is basically operating your life around minimum standards, right? And so there's been a lot written and talked about scheduling and all that stuff and time blocking, and all that stuff definitely makes sense, especially to time block your morning. But really, what's the next step behind time blocking? How do you know what to time block? And the essence of it is there's usually, if you do 3 things at an extremely high level and in your life in general, but certainly as an entrepreneur or a business owner, 3 to 5 things every day that are your minimum standards. And if you do those every single day consistently, and one of our sayings, which you read in the book, is do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, which that's like the antithesis of what most people are told to do. Most people are told to work towards your passion or do it when you feel like it, or it's all these emotional strapped, ideas, which are counter to the actual work that needs to be done to actually become what you hope to one day become, right? So it's the doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. So when I ask, you have a real estate license, right?
Yes.
All right. So what are if you had to take, I'm laughing because I know I'm going to start asking you questions because I can't help myself.
Hey, I'm here to ask you questions.
If you had to take, I know. If you have to take 20 listings by the end of August, and these have to be, not listing a subdivision or a bunch of lots or just individual sellers, what 3 things would you do that you want to do the least, that would be the most effective? It's a convoluted question, so think about it. What would be the most efficient way for you to generate those listing leads? Like if we go up in front of a group of agents, it can be in a podcast, it can be a Zoom meeting, it doesn't matter. It could be a live event back when we did those. And we were to ask them the similar question to what I asked you. If I usually position it slightly different. I say, so what would you guys pay for a list of, say, 100 sellers who are ready to sell their houses, who have proved their willingness to list their house, pay a commission, are motivated to sell? What would you pay for that list of potential sellers, right? And agents, especially ones that have basically only been in the business since 2007, which is probably like 99% of all agents, they're all conditioned to buy leads. And so what their minds will start going is, well, I pay this much for a Zillow lead, and I pay this much for this, the other thing. So they automatically start saying 300, 500, their reactions are, they're so, it's sad, to be honest with you. And then I explain to them where I got the list. If we're presenting to a group of agents in Scottsdale, all have had someone pull up the list of expireds, for example, or notices of defaults, or for sale by owners, or all the different sources of free seller leads, of which there's probably about 20 of them. And then I say, well, here's the free list. I can just give this to you. And why not? So now I'm going to hand it to you. Now, what are you going to do with the list? And then after that, again, when we're presenting to agents who've only been licensed really since the advent of buying leads really came into, vogue in 2007 when Zillow really started doing it, they don't know what to do with the leads. They'll be like, what do I do with this list? What am I supposed to do? And they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know how to overcome objections. They don't know how to present. They don't know how to compete. And so if you're an agent that's only been in the business for, 10 years, it's like the levels of learning. I think it was Abraham Maslow that said this, right? So the first level is unconscious incompetence. That's basically where you don't know. And the level above that is conscious incompetence. That's when you start to discover that you don't know stuff. And where most agents are is they're in that first level, and they've been placated and sold to, and in our opinion, somewhat lied to for the past 10 years, because they've been told to buy leads. They've never been told that you can actually generate your own business. And there's so many other businesses that have come up around the whole concept of agents buying leads. Then you have all these CRMs, and then you have all these people that are trying to get you to build teams and all this other stuff. And so there's a whole, like the industry, our industry, is awash with all these ideas that are all built around essentially agents, not unwillingness, but inability or I think lack of knowledge about how to generate their own business. And so what our podcast is and what our book is all about is hopefully, at least for some of the agents that will really embrace it, having them realize they don't have to be, beholden to buying leads. So you never to experience any kind of freedom or consistent cash flow or anything if you're always buying leads. And what's more is like I had a call yesterday with a team in Michigan, Detroit, I don't remember where. Anyway, so they're still like 200 houses a year. They have 6 or 7 buyer's agents, and he wanted to hire us to basically improve his profitability. And it's like he hires us or he doesn't hire us. I'm not going to change what I'm going to say. And this call made it to me. Normally it just sticks on our sales floor, but the guy insisted in talking with me, which was fine. I have no problem doing it. I give out my cell phone number every day on our podcast. And then I started going through his numbers with him, and I started asking him questions like, have you ever run a profit and loss statement on your buyer side of your business versus your seller side of your business? No. Have you ever run profit and loss on your individual buyer's agents? Remember, he had like 6 or 7. No. Okay, so, and I've done that countless times and for other people. And I'll say, and especially in his sale price, which is around 200 grand, I say, here's what you'll discover. Your listing side of your business is where all your profit is coming from. And he wasn't making very much profit, like 6%. That's where your profit is coming from, but it's also subsidizing the buyer side of the business. So not only are you not making money on the buyer side of the business, you're actually losing money. And then we did the math backwards, and I proved it to him. And that for him was, it's fascinating because he was one of these guys. He wasn't with Keller Williams, but he was a big believer in the MRE, And I explained to him that the MRE, the book Millionaire Real Estate Agent that Gary and Jay wrote forever ago, I explained to him that that book was predicated on a set of essentially, you weren't buying leads back when MRE was created. Commissions were higher back when MRE was created. In MRE, there's a whole section about agents having to, even on a team, buyers agents, self-generating their own leads. None of these things are happening nowadays. And so what's happened is these teams and a lot of these brokerages, which are just a big elaborate teams, have unwillingly, and I think in a lot of cases unknowingly, they're running these businesses that are operating on single-digit margins. And as soon as the market slows down, another COVID, whatever happens, which is inevitably going to happen, especially going into next year, those businesses that are still stuck with all this high fixed costs, staff, overhead, leases, buying leads, buying all this other Mickey Mouse to support the buying of the leads. As soon as those expenses, they're going to run afoul of basically their ability to meet, to basically pay all their overhead. And that's the exact same pattern that happened back in 07. And that's the same pattern that happened back in the early, the early 2000s. So you're going to see all these teams and these brokerages that if they don't adjust quick to the new realities of, essentially the lack of efficiency in the business model that they've been following, the fact that and here's the reason that guy in Detroit, Michigan, was a little bit emotionally distraught by it, because he was a little mad at me for like a little bit. It's because he was so emotionally and financially invested in making that model work. For me to tell him that the model itself is largely unworkable, his first reaction was anger, because I'm telling something that's counter to everything that he's believed for so long, like a religion, basically. But then what I explained to him is that there's something wrong with the business model he was trying to build. It'd be similar to if he bought a franchise, and the franchise was like, think of like a cupcake franchise or a yogurt franchise. All these sort of franchises that come and go after like 10 or 15 years, they follow these sort of patterns, and then other ideas come around and other business models that are more efficient come around, and then those franchises, they end up going out of business. Well, in essence, that's the same sort of, we are at peak seller's market right now. It's August. In much of the country, we're at peak seller's market, where it's going to start really feeling like a buyer's market, especially about a year from now. And we're also at peak buying buyer leads. We're at peak team. We're at peak all these ideas that essentially have had their, they were macro trends, and now they're on the, and I'm not really sure what's going to come next, but I'm hoping what comes next are agents really focusing on truly being of service to their customers, which is kind of a big, broad statement. But ultimately, what we want agents to realize, and brokerages especially, is that, your product ultimately in your real estate practice is happy customers, it's repeat business, it's sold houses, it's all that. Like, what is your product is another question that we try to challenge agents with. And the real product of your business should be profit, right? The product that if you're not producing a profit from your business, then you're running obviously a nonprofit business, which, that's the litmus test of how efficient you are as a business owner, is what's the profit you're making. And if you find yourself running a nonprofit business or a low profit business, you have to ask yourself, okay, is this something I want to continue to do or continue to try to make work? So when people discover our book and our podcast, and we explain to them that this is a business model that you've been following, this is the reason that these are the results that you're getting. There's nothing wrong with you as a business owner. There's nothing wrong with you if your ability to scale a business. You probably are unbelievably good if you're given the right set of circumstances. It's the business model you are following that's faulty. And as soon as we shed light on that, the sense of relief that a lot of people have is enormous. And you can hear it on the phone. Sometimes they get emotional, because we're explaining to them, yes, you should have staff. Yes, you should, maybe have a team. But let's talk about what the purpose of the team is. And let's talk about what your purpose in the business is. So that's our approach, which comes only from the fact we've been in the business for 25 years, which comes only from the fact that we came up during a time when, before internet, which is hilarious to say, before you could buy buyer leads. Julie and I did have a team, so I speak from experience. We've coached, between Julie and I, we've probably had easily 250,000 one-on-one coaching calls, easily. And that's not including our coaching staff. That's not even including, literally the tens of thousands of people that listen to us every week on our podcast. We're kind of coaching them as well. But what we're trying to help the industry realize on a ground level, trying to help individual practitioners realize, is that they need to be taking a different approach to the way that they think about their business, starting with the mindset of, I want to be of service to people, right? That's my primary driver in life. When you have that dominant thought, I want to be of service to people, what melts away is all the ego stuff. Mm-hmm. So, okay, it starts with, I want to be of service to people. Okay, now there's this for sale by owner that you never would have called. If you're knowing that your job is to help that person sell that house, and your job and your mission in life is to be of service to people, doesn't that automatically change the nature of how you think about making that call? Isn't it amazing how it goes from your ego's fear of what they're going to say or how they're going to say it to, I want to help that person solve that problem, getting that property sold. That's my job. That's my mission in life. So if that's my mission in life, then I need to learn what to say and how to say it to help that person make the right decision and obviously hire, you, and then, get the house listed and sold, which as the market progresses and towards a buyer's market, it's going to become more and more challenging. So does all that blathering make sense?
It does. And I can relate to a lot of it. So how everyone says, come up with your perfect 30-second, 1-minute pitch. Mine is, I'm Jessica Peterson, a real estate agent and a wow power player. How can I wow you today? What's a good connection for you? A good referral? How can I be of support to you, right? It's make it always about them. And I value that you guys do that. What I really like, you covered a lot, and a lot of it's actually in my notes right here. It says, know your bills, know your average earnings, figure out what you want, because what you want may not be what someone else wants. There's nothing wrong with that. How do you feel as you visualize to get what you want? And have 3 people hold you accountable to that. Be joyful, giving, grateful people. You want people to enjoy being around you, right? I'm enjoying being around Tim right now. You're fun, you're enjoyable. So it's really time to reflect and think, are you enjoyable? Anyone listening right now, are you enjoyable to be around? Failure is not an option. Mindset, I love that you went into mindset. Schedule equals profit. You covered so much of this. And I like how you say 5 to 8 sources for systems. What I do want to cover a little bit more is 3 people hold accountable. What does that accountability look like to you, Tim?
Well, I mean, that word is so, it's a hilarious word, because when people say they're looking for a coach, they always say they want accountability, right? Like, why are you hiring a coach? Because I want accountability. Someone to hold me accountable to doing what I don't want to do, and I don't want to do it at the highest level. And then when you start holding them accountable, they're like, hold on now. No. This is what I really want. So accountability means something different to every person. So you might have, like, one of the things, so thinking about what's going to ultimately motivate you, the shortcut for that is realizing that hardly anybody's motivated by the carrot, right? Everyone says, especially real estate people, remember I'm a real estate person, so I used to say this as well. If you say, okay, Jessica, are you more motivated by, the carrot or the stick? You're going to say the carrot because that's what we think. But the truth is we're more motivated by losing something that we already have. So if you right now, going back to the 20 listings in 30 days or whatever, right? If I were to say you take 20 listings in 30 days, you get a check for $100,000, all taxes paid, you're going to go, all right, I'm after it, I'm going to go after it, right? That's motivation. You're thinking, okay, what can I do with the $100,000? Now, if I flip that and I say, Jessica, if you don't list 20 houses by the end of August or whatever, that you're going to lose something that's dear to you. So what would be something, a possession that you would hate to lose? Your house, your car.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's how you find true motivation. So if you can channel that within yourself, fear of losing something you already have, then all of a sudden the accountability becomes easy. And then you want to find accountability amongst real estate agents. You have to find somebody, it's almost impossible, because you have to find somebody that is at least not one step above you, but like 3 steps above you, right? You need to have somebody that's going to be, and accountability could be hiring a coach. Jessica, you said you were going to do this in the past week. Let's talk about what we got done, what you didn't get done, why you didn't get it done. And, work through all your excuses and then basically drill down on cutting through the BS and getting to why you actually didn't do it. Like, what would be something, don't worry, I won't go start asking you questions, I promise. But if I were to ask you to call 3 for sale by owners by the end of the week and set listing appointments, would you do it? How about expireds?
No, they don't excite me as much. So, I mean, if you tell me to do it, Tim, I'll do it.
Well, you'd be a great coaching client. I can already tell you got the right spirit, right? But sometimes, so have you worked for sale by owners before?
Yes.
So,
Okay.
so if you had to go, and so I want to make it so that it's visible that you don't know, you have no connection whatsoever, and you have to call and solicit those people, and you have to know what to say and how to say it, get a listing appointment, and then get the property listed. And could you do it?
Well, are you asking pre-COVID? Because I've done it before pre-COVID. Are you asking after? Because I used to go just knock on their door.
That's a good place to start. So when you're knocking on the door, what would you say? Do you have a script, or are you using your charm?
I don't have much charm at all.
Yeah, you do. So our first year in the business, okay, so knowing I can relate, right? We sold over 100 houses our first year in the business, and we were in our early 20s. And trust me when I tell you, I was knocking on doors and calling a lot of FSBOs, and I didn't know what the hell to say, but I could, use charm to basically get past the initial no. And then after you have enough of those conversations with enough for sale by owners, you realize basically they usually have the same 3 or 4 issues that's holding them back from wanting to list the property. But really what the interesting mindset that I discovered when we were that first year in the business, most for sale by owners are listing for sale by owner because, putting the sign in the yard because they don't know a real estate agent. So all a FSBO sign is a help wanted sign. And so when I had that little epiphany realizing that the reason that person is trying to sell it themselves is because it's a help wanted sign, they're looking to interview agents, that made the whole job easier. And what I found consistently was no agents would do all sorts of passive things. They wouldn't actually do the real work, like picking up the phone and calling, like going and knocking on the door. And so that's the nature of in the industry right now is everything's passive. Nobody wants to actually do the real work of real estate. And once you move past your reluctance to do the real work of real estate, everything changes, because then you go from having to be somebody who's trying to create noise, doing videos and doing all this social networking stuff, and you're maybe mailing and doing all the centers of influence, past client stuff, and all that stuff has a place. But there's so much competition, there's so much noise when you're in those channels, and nobody nowadays just goes direct and is proactive. So if you want to know, like Jeb Blunt wrote the book Fanatical Prospecting, is a friend of ours. We had him on our podcast. And Jeb's basically, we both preach from the same book, the book of prospecting, the book of proactive lead generation. And when I had him on our podcast, his book, Fanatical Prospecting, had been out for about a year. And I was talking to him about social networking and all this. And I asked him a dumb question. I said, Jeb, what is your, he does a lot, he speaks for he'll coach and train large non-real estate organizations primarily. And I said, so how do these big companies receive you in light of the era that we're in, where everyone's social networking and all these salespeople think they're going to generate all their leads from Facebook ads and the rest of it? And it was on a phone call and he didn't say anything, and then he goes, Tim, my book's the #1 bestseller, New York Times, right? So the point he was making is that those big corporations were trying to move their salespeople, pharma sales, everything you can imagine, away from the gimmicky stuff and back towards doing the real work. And that was the foundation of his business. And that's what Julie and I have been talking about forever. But it's fascinating in real estate that so many people focus on the passive stuff and why do you think that's true, Jessica? Why do you think for every, one Tim and Julie, there's 1,000 people that are telling you to spend money on Facebook ads and do social networking and do videos and all this passive stuff? Why do you think that's true?
They want the easier route.
Right. And so the easier route doesn't get the same result. So why do you think other than agents wanting to do the easier route, do you think if they knew how inefficient those things were at actually generating closed business, do you think they would still do it?
No.
I don't think they would either. So why is it that our industry has gotten to the point where all our industry does is preach to agents to do the passive, easier, the silver bullet, the shiny, bright object? Why is it that our industry, by industry I mean managers and brokers, and why is it that our industry seems to reinforce the least effective, least profitable way of running a real estate business? Why do you think that's true?
Because they maybe want what's easier for them, not out of their comfort zone.
You mean the brokers and the office managers don't want to be out of their comfort zones?
Yeah, everyone in real estate always wants to be in a comfort place, right?
Right. And that's the reason that there's a failure rate of, I forget what the statistics are, but it's like over 90% after 18 months of all real estate agents fail. And to your point, the brokers and the office managers, most of them have only been in the business for 10 years or less. So they think that that's how you actually run a real estate business, by essentially effectively trying to buy your leads. And so we're coming at the end of that cycle. It's not just going to be, here one day, gone the next. It's starting to peter out. And what caused that cycle, that mega cycle of the buyer leads and the teams thing to flourish was the seller's market. Because when you have a seller's market where things effectively sell themselves, and you have a bunch of people that are not knowing how to really source what their true source of business was, where the business came from, and someone comes to town and says, you got to do videos and social networking, and here's the greatest Facebook ad ever, and another little bugaboo is the whole branding thing. Branding is hilarious. I mean, what is branding, right? I know what branding is, but isn't branding being sold to agents as a shortcut to overcome or compensate for the fact that they don't have a great reputation? Isn't that how branding's being sold? I mean, don't branding companies come to you and say, listen, we're going to make you look like something you're not? Isn't that what branding effectively is? Or at least how it's being sold to real estate agents? And real estate agents are believing it. They're spending all this money on branding, and they're saying, where's the business? Where's my stellar reputation? They're not being told the truth that you have to earn that. And the way you earn that is being of service to other people. And the way you get people to want to do business with you is you have to have a service that they're willing to pay for, and that comes from skills.
Yeah, so branding, I have a branding marketing agency over the years. It's just a small piece. It doesn't mean, because you have this fancy online website or social business just start coming in, right? It's just such a small piece to it.
Do you know the average agent generates how many closed transactions per year from their personally branded real estate website? It's a trick question, by the way. Yeah. The average agent generates how many closed transactions per year from their personal agent website?
I was going to say 1 or less.
Yes, 0 is the answer. Well, but isn't that interesting? Don't you think? I think
it's yes, it is interesting. It's just a platform where people want to go to learn about you, snoop you out and everything. It doesn't mean that someone's going to go to your website and be like, oh, I'm hiring Tim or Jessica today, right? No, it's just a place to get to know you.
But how many agents are right now spending how much money per month supporting a website that's never going to generate them any business?
I know quite a few that I know quite a few, and I tell them, don't be doing that. Don't be putting out all that money for it.
It doesn't make sense, right?
Just have the basics.
Yeah.
Just have the basics.
Exactly. So like, here's the other, you see branding campaigns. People will sell branding. Well, here's what you're going to do, Jessica. We're going to make a nice logo. We're going to make a nice website. Don't worry. Those things will never generate business for you. And then we're going to create a bunch of postcards. And then we want you to mail these postcards into this, geographic area. And we want you to do this forever. And when a year passes and after you shovel out hundreds, if not tens of thousands of dollars, then you're going to go back to it and you're going to say, well, why is this not working? And then they're going to say, you got to keep doing it. You're just giving up too soon. You got to do it for another year and another year and another year. It doesn't work because it doesn't work like it used to work. Those things, like a geographic farm back in the 80s and 90s, really did work if there wasn't a lot of other competition of agents doing the same thing. But nowadays, it doesn't really work because why? The nature of how people, disseminate information, receive information isn't through mail for the most part. People are, using their phones and using mobile devices. But if you want to cut through all the noise, pick up the phone, have a direct conversation. So before we were talking about the 3 to 5 things that every agent should be doing every single day.
Yes.
And one of them has to be making the number of contacts with the number of people that you're supposed to based on your, what we call the real estate treasure map, which is your business plan, which we give away, by the way. So if you have to go through, you talked about it before, the treasure map's in our book, by the way. you have to go through and figure out what your business expenses are, your personal expenses, and then you have to figure out how many listings you have to have at all times to meet or exceed your financial expectations. So you might discover that you're in an area where, I don't know, your average sale price is $500,000, right? And you have a personal overhead of $15,000. So you might have to have, we show you how to work the numbers and figure out what the average days on the market is, the absorption and all that stuff. So let's say you do the real estate treasure map and you determine you need, based on the current market conditions, 5 listings at all times. And on average, as the market slows down, now many people are going to say, so how many of those in most markets right now, if you had 5 active listings, how many of them would be in contract? Probably all 5. But as the direction we're going, it's going to be 1. So if you had 1 listing at all times, if you had 5 listings at all times, on average, 1 would be in contract at all times. This is just on the list side. And if your overhead, if you're 6% commission on that $500,000 house, that 1 sale, obviously commission splits and whatnot aren't being taken into consideration. But that 1 sale is going to cover all your personal and business overhead. That's basically your business plan. So figure out what your real estate magic number is, which is the number of listings you need at all times to meet or exceed your financial expectations, and then work towards having that number of active listings. I'm not talking about buyers. I'm not talking about teams. I'm not talking about branding. I'm not talking about websites. I'm not talking about postcards. I'm not talking about social networking or all those things, because you don't need any of those things to actually earn the right to have 5 listings or 10 listings at all times. You can go direct. You can be proactive. You see the difference?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I did write that down. I love, everybody's income, what they want to make is going to be completely different. And then what is it, the action steps that you need to take to go ahead and make it happen? Okay. So you keep bringing up, it seems like for sale by owners and expireds quite a bit.
Well, just
right?
as a for example, everyone knows what they are. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just talk about for sale by owners. They have lots of people reaching out to them.
You would think that's true, but how many people are calling them? What most of them do is most of them do direct mail, or most of them will try to find them on Facebook. They're not actually putting, so what agents will avoid, and this is something else that's in our book, if you're not putting yourself in a position to hear the word no 5 times a day, you're not doing your job. Start with 1 time a day. So you have to be willing to put yourself in a position to be completely and totally shut down, rejected, not by your spouse or your kids or your, a real estate seller, ideally. If you're not putting yourself in the position to hear the word no at least 5 times a day, you're not doing your job. Now start with 1, like I said, and work up to 5 or work up to 10, whatever. But if you're not really doing that type of work, you're not doing the real work of real estate. You're not going to really build any momentum in a meaningful way.
You just reminded me.
Yeah.
Well, you reminded me of one of my mentors, Harris. He said he would make 100 calls a day, and he had over 90 no's in one day. And he pushed, and he finally got the big yes that day.
Well, but seriously though, isn't that the truth? Isn't that how you get anywhere in life? You have to put yourself now. So why won't agents do that work?
They're scared.
Of what?
Rejection.
Right. So there's 2 types of fears. There's psychological fear and there's physical fear. Right. So psychological fear is also ego. And physical fear is real fear. So physical fear is the fear that's hardwired into our circadian lizard brains. It's the fight or flight mechanism, right? So if I'm out walking around Puerto Rico today and I see a huge ash pineapple ready to fall and crack me on the head, that's going to give me a fight or flight, and I'm going to move out of the way. That's real fear. Or if I see one of these, like there's iguanas here from stem to stern, they're like 4 feet long. You ever seen an iguana that size? They look like dragons.
Yes. They do. I was in Puerto Rico last year. Yeah,
they're amazing, right?
Yes.
And they're different colors, and they have spikes on their heads, and they're big beady eyes. And the males have these claws that wrap around. And when you're walking in a path and you see one of them, they look at you like, "What are you gonna do?" I mean, you're gonna walk around me,
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so if you were being chased by an iguana, or if one turns on you and rears up and tries to get you, you're gonna run. That's fight or flight. So that is how, going back to, root man software, when we were worrying about saber-toothed tigers eating us, we needed that. That's real fear. But psychological fear is, oh my gosh, I'm going to pick up this phone and this person's going to hurt my feelings. They're going to reject me. But here's the fascinating thing when you understand this. The way that your brain reacts is the same with physical fear as it is with psychological fear. The same chemical reactions happen. So the very thought of someone picking up that phone elicits the same chemical reaction of fight or flight that killer iguana or that pineapple would have.
Absolutely. I believe that is so golden what you said right there.
I appreciate it. So moral of the story is once you realize that yes, the iguana can probably maim you, and yes, the pineapple can hurt you, but picking up the phone, nothing's going to happen. It's all in your head. It's ego. It's your ego filling your head with all the what ifs, right? What if they say this? What if they say that? What are they going to think of me? They're going to think of me as a, car salesman. They're going to think of me as I'm desperate. They're going to, all these Mickey Mouse ego inner talk starts pouring in. The great book, but written by another friend of ours, Ryan Halliday, called Ego is the Enemy. You guys, your listeners should definitely get that. But once those thoughts start pouring in your head, and it happens instantaneously, like just test it. You're going to call right now on camera, Jessica. I'm going to give you a FSBO, and we're going to call it. Like with a natural, I would feel this way too, truthfully. Then the initial spark is fear. And that's what stops most people, right? That
You know what's
initial spark.
crazy? I got excited, actually. I actually got a little excited. I was like,
You're
well, let's
crazy,
do it.
clearly. Anyone who gets that many thank you cards is, you're doing something totally wrong, clearly. But so that's the thing. So when you feel that initial fear, that's where most people stop. And that's when you back off, and then that's the reason most agents only work their centers of influence and past clients. They never learn how to actually have a professional sales approach. They don't, for example, know how to proactively lead generate. They don't know how to pre-qualify. They don't know how to go on a listing appointment with someone they don't know and compete and win. They don't know how to do any of it. And I think a lot of them don't know what they don't know. They're in that initial stage of learning where they're essentially blissfully ignorant. They're, it's the very base level of learning. It's not until, and this is when people come to coaching, right? When people come to coaching, it's after they've lost something. Most agents, when they're at the unconscious incompetence, right? When they don't know what they don't know. At that point, they're not coachable because they don't know what they don't know. It's when they go on a listing appointment and they lose, or they lose something that they thought that they should have gotten based on their prior experiences. And then it's through that pain that they're shocked into the conscious incompetence phase. And that's where they start wanting to learn. But most of the industry is still at this root phase. And there's so many people that have put this really thick glass ceiling preventing them from going to the next layer because it's constantly being reinforced, right? Because the industry has allowed or not sort of spoken against all of these gimmicks that have basically become normalized in our industry. And all those agents that have come in our industry who thought that those were the ways that you build a business are now through the cycle of the seller's market coming to an end. I honestly wonder how many of them are coming to the end of the cycle, realizing that they have built businesses that aren't producing any profit. They maybe have accumulated some debt. And how many of them are believing it's because there's something wrong with them, right? I wonder how many people out there who've done all this social networking and the teams and the branding and the this and the other, spent all this money, accumulated probably a lot of debt. And how many of them are saying, where's my success? Where's my payoff? And then they're starting to believe that they were the problem, not the ideas that they were following. Those are the people that I want to speak to, because those are the people that I want to say, and Julie and our whole coaching organization wants to say, you are not the right reason that you're not experiencing the success that you deserve, that once you earn the right to, be of service to other people. It's the plan you are following. So let's stop thinking that there's something defective with you. Let's admit the fact that you are probably following a plan that maybe originally worked, but doesn't work now. And let's pivot so you can get on it and going in a direction that makes sense, that will result in you, one day essentially, it's being rich, right? Being rich is where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money, which is also in the book.
Yes, I wrote that down. I have all these, what's so amazing is everything I wrote down to adjust next. It's almost like you knew what my notes were. It's really strange. Like, oh, okay, well, it's almost like you know.
I am talking about the order in which the chapters are in the book.
Okay, well, that's probably why, because I wrote down all my notes and the order of the different, the things. So you said something that it really hit me to the core. First of all, I'm always learning. There's a bunch I don't know. And then the second thing is, I'll never forget when I kept speaking, I hated to speak. And this gentleman, he's a former real estate agent, cop, fire chief. Now he's a psychotherapist. He said, Jessica, he said, quit being selfish. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, by you getting all scared and nervous to get out there and speak, it's just selfish. You're making it about you. You've got value, get out there. So I like what you said. So every time you pick up the phone to call up that expired, that FSBO, quit being selfish, right? It's not about you. Get over that ego.
Well, that's exactly perfectly stated. I'll tell you where I really learned, like being as many coaching calls as we've done is cathartic, you know. So I was on this coaching call with this guy. You'd want to list your house with him even if you have a real estate license kind of guy, right? But he wouldn't pick up the phone no matter what. He just wouldn't call anybody because he couldn't get past that initial spark of fear. He identified it. He could actually feel when it was manifesting inside of his, you know, usually it's right here, right? And he could feel when that feeling kicked in. He could recognize it, but he couldn't push past it. So I had him write a note, which is exactly what you just said, Jessica. And it said, basically, I'm here to be of service to you. And I said, when you're calling somebody, before you pick up the phone, say that. I'm here to be of service to you. Because when you say that, when you think it, the words mean nothing, but when you start internalizing it, you say it enough, you'll begin to feel it. You, all of a sudden, that pensive ego reaction, it might still be there, but it's not driving the ship. It's not dominating what you say and the results that you get for other people. So once you move past that initial pang of, you know, adrenaline and fight or flight, and the way to do that is what you said, is acknowledging that your highest and truest purpose in this planet is to be of service to other people. That's what really all of us ultimately make us the most content and happy. That sense that we've helped somebody else. And if you attach to that, and if you say that, okay, my highest and truest purpose in this planet is to be of service to other people, then all of a sudden you start saying, how does making an Instagram post actually help other people? It doesn't. How does doing all this other Mickey Mouse crap as my only source of lead generation, hypothetical lead source of lead generation, you'll realize quickly it doesn't. So what then you'll realize is what you really need to do to earn the right to be of service to other people is you need to actually know how to help people in a multitude of situations. So imagine you're walking into a house with a toolbox, and the only tool you have in the toolbox is a screwdriver. That's all you've needed for the past 10 years in the seller's market. Sellers weren't that particular who they're going to list with. Sellers weren't upside down. Sellers could spitball the price and have the house sell forever. It's been an easy market. Sellers markets are easy markets. And the only tool you've needed in your toolbox is a screwdriver. So now all of a sudden you start walking into listing appointments or even working with buyers, and now you need a screwdriver, a hammer, a saw, all these other tools, but you only know how to use that screwdriver. You know, they're not going to do business with you because you can't solve their problem. Like, I don't need that, you know, drawer tightened. What I need is I need you to fix this plumbing leak, and I need this electrical problem fixed. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, I only know how to use a screwdriver. Well, then thank you, goodbye. Even if that is your mom, she's not going to do business with you because you can't solve her problem. That's where most agents are going to struggle, because they're not going to realize, they're going to say, I was doing all this for so long, and that screwdriver is all I've really needed in like centers of influence and past clients. And those agents usually suffer the most when the market transitions, because those agents that are based on centers of influence and past clients, generally speaking, have been able to, relationship their way into transactions, and some of them quite successfully. And their assumption is that those sellers might still call them out when the market changes. They might, or they might not, because what happens is if you're friends with your centers of influence and past clients, which that lead generation method preaches for you to be like that, fake friend in essence, they're not going to call you out because they might be having marital, financial, all kinds of problems because of the changing economy, and they don't want to share their personal issues with you. They're going to call out somebody that is proven to be able to solve problems like the one they have, being underwater, let's say, or whatever their situation is. They're going to call that person who's a complete stranger because they know that person can solve the problem, and you're not going to get the listing. And that's what happens every time the market cycles through like this. Now, if you're a center of influence past client based agent and you have the skills to solve problems, and you can explain, and you can somehow put on the relationship friend cap and the professional cap, that's a lot of layers of complexity, then you're incredibly powerful. But very few agents can transition away from that. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So the person who does rely on their sphere, that is a common thing I hear of. Well, so for example, I had someone who called me, and I have a team, and they're like, that's my friend. Why did they call you and not me, right? And they said, well, I don't really want them to get involved in no blah, blah. So how would you tell someone to position themselves to avoid that, to avoid the friend not wanting to hire you?
Well, it all starts with them. Like, for example, so in a changing market, again, it's one of the best times for agents to move up market, because the up market agents, especially the ones that have been really, deeply rooted into a community, and most of their business is, again, up market type agents. A lot of them get their business from country clubs and their, social connections. Well, those agents are not going to feel comfortable having conversations with the people that they sold houses to if the houses are worth less than what they sold them, if the seller's losing money, right?
Yep.
And so that's the prime opportunity for an agent to swoop in and start working those areas where before maybe there was a well-entrenched number 1, 2, and 3 agent, which is typically what you see. Number 1 does all the volume of number 2 and 3. Well, all those agents get displaced in a changing market like this for a whole host of reasons. And the biggest one being is, you'll hear this a lot, and Julie and I did this when we were selling real estate, we moved markets, is the sellers will literally they'll be resentful towards those other agents for reasons that the other agents shouldn't be held accountable to. The market changed, right? Well,
Yep.
a lot of the sellers are going to be looking for an alternative, but you're not going to get the business just because you know them from tennis. You're going to have people that have all kinds of different layers of issues, and if you don't have the skill set to know how to solve those problems, if you don't have the tools in your toolbox, then they're not going to do business with you. This is the reason that people ask us, Tim, is this a good time to get into the real estate business? I say this is the best time to get in the real estate business since the real estate crash. It really is, because there's more opportunity made during a transitioning market than there is during a slow and steady seller's market. This is the time to get into real estate, and this is the time to drill down with skills.
That was very valuable, good info. I feel like we could talk for hours, Tim, and now I know why you've got your amazing podcast. So tell everyone how they can go ahead and find you. We know Harris Rules a Book, your podcast, how do they find you?
Real Estate Coaching Radio is our podcast. They can find that everywhere. And as far as if they want that real estate treasure map, they just have to text the word survival to 31996, and we'll just text it to them.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, well, you're amazing. Hey, everyone, thank you for listening. Keep on thriving on Thriver Island. Thank you so much for all of your amazing wisdom, enthusiasm, and support, Tim. Have an amazing day. Wow. Tim and Julie Harris, you guys absolutely rock. So thank you so much for that interview. So much wonderful value. As a matter of fact, I have 3 different people who have written in things that they absolutely enjoyed from my interview with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and give some of those highlights a recap overview. First of all, someone wrote in that they really like that statement. You mentioned a lot of real estate agents are living in blissful ignorance, and to stop it. Really good insight that you went ahead and shared. This is another one. Actually, I've heard this one since we just spoke about that. Doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. That's powerful. Let's say that again. Doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. Whew, that can be pretty intense. Fear as a motivator. So we spoke a little bit about good fear and bad fear. To do what you need to do so you don't lose what's most valuable to you, right? We've got to sometimes overcome that fear. There's good fear, bad fear, to get done and keep what's valuable to you. Also brought about what's working and not working anymore in today's times. With the seller's market will not work with the buyer's market. Learn your numbers, your ROI for buyers and sellers, absolutely. And also spoke about how buying leads. That was really fascinating. Is it working or not working? I really like that insight that you gave there, Tim. The market change is happening. Yes, I am observing that absolutely, especially meeting so many incredible people. Myself experiencing real estate, I'm seeing that shift. If you do what others do not do, then you will have what others do not have. Ooh, that was powerful too. Tim, you have so much great insight. You do not need to buy the leads. You can create the leads. We spoke about that, about ways to not buy and how to go ahead and create those leads. You can set your own future with your own work. Do the real estate work. Do it. It takes work, right? And always make sure you put your clients first. That is thumbs up, by far one of my most favorite. Agents' lack of knowledge. That I absolutely agree with. Coaching and working with real estate agents over the years, the lack of that knowledge can really be weighing down on real estate agents, whether you're new or advanced, it doesn't matter. It mentions even some people 10 years in the game or less. Again, someone wrote in, they really like understanding your profit and loss and managing a reasonable overhead. Sometimes we can get all these expenses, unnecessary expenses. Eliminate egos, fear, failure, and focus on helping people around you. I'm going to end with that one because that is truly incredible. Thank you again, Tim and Julie Harris, for the wonderful interview. So much insight. And thank you to all of you here at Thrive Real Estate Education. Keep on thriving, keep on being thrivers, and we'll see you in the next interview.
Visit thriverealestateeducation.com for free video CE. You really can't go wrong. 24/7, 365. Do your CE right online.